You're obviously not an American. We love to not think. But you know, I used to do a show called Politically Incorrect back in the 90s, and oh, thank you. Oh, the 90s, we remember them. And so I was always asked, what is your definition of political correctness? And I had to come up with one. I said, it's the elevation of sensitivity over truth, which seems like what it still is, except it's worse than ever.
It's more like the elevation of moral posturing about sensitivity over truth. It's even worse.
Yeah. So where did it come from? How did we get to this place where we're so fragile? The safe space people.
Oh, I think that you can pretty much blame it on the universities. I think that they've pursued, especially in the humanities and in the social sciences as well, they've pursued a policy of a radical leftist policy with an overlay of postmodernism, which kind of a literary criticism approach that's produced all of this. As far as I can tell, I think you can lay a lot of it at the feet of faculties like the faculties of education. There was an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education this week that just devastated the faculties of education, taking them to task for low academic standards and for possession by ideology and for basically indoctrinating people in a cult-like manner and playing identity politics and group identity.
And no free speech.
In this explosive segment, Jordan Peterson and Bill Maher go head-to-head with the dogma of political correctness, slamming its obsession with sensitivity as a direct assault on truth. They argue that today's culture of tiptoeing around offense and coddling emotions is eroding open dialogue and gutting intellectual integrity. Peterson doesn't hold back. He calls out universities, especially the humanities and social sciences, as breeding grounds for this ideological rot, driven by the rise of postmodernist nonsense. Together, he and Maher warn that this climate is choking free speech and silencing the kind of raw, unfiltered conversation society desperately needs to move forward. The twist: Maher's audience is packed with the very people Peterson is calling out. Will sparks fly, or minds open? Watch the clash unfold. In the video,
I think this crowd likes it, but I mean, it's nasty, and they're considering suspending her. And here's what the president of the university said. He said this was beyond free speech. This was disrespectful. Have we lost the thread back to knowing what free speech is? Yes, it can be disrespectful. That is covered under free speech. President of Fresno, you idiot. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, and you see this too. I think where it's manifesting itself in a particularly appalling manner is in the increasing unwillingness of comedians, for example, to go on university campuses to be funny.
So, in this fiery exchange, Jordan Peterson and Bill Maher are not pulling any punches when it comes to free speech. Their core message: if your speech can't offend, it's not really free. They're pushing back hard on this growing trend where anything that makes someone uncomfortable gets slapped with the hate speech label, or worse, treated like a crime. Now here's where it gets interesting. They're not saying you should go around offending people just for fun, but they are saying that the possibility of offense is built into the whole idea of free speech. If we start equating offensive with illegal or unacceptable, then we're gutting the very purpose of free expression, which is to challenge, to provoke, and yet sometimes to make people squirm. They also call out a big misconception: people acting like the First Amendment is supposed to protect them from being criticized or disagreed with. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It protects you from government censorship, not from backlash or being called out online. Big difference. And then they go in on the culture shift, how postmodern ideologies, especially in universities, are prioritizing emotional safety over uncomfortable truths. Basically, they argue that we've started to treat ideas like they're dangerous just because they make people feel bad. That, according to them, is a slippery slope straight to self-censorship and intellectual stagnation. Their bottom line: if we keep trying to sanitize every conversation to make sure no one gets offended, we're going to lose the very thing that makes democratic discourse possible. Free speech isn't always nice, but it's necessary, especially when it makes us uncomfortable.
there's also this idea that's promoted by the people who are protecting those who are easily offended, that the way to make people secure is to protect them from things that they don't want to encounter. And there isn't a clinician, like I'm a trained clinical psychologist, and there isn't a clinician in the country who's worth his or her salt that would ever make that claim. Because you don't make people, first of all, it's hard to make people safe because life is seriously not safe.
Yes.
And the way that you make people resilient is by exposing them to things that they're afraid of and that make them uncomfortable voluntarily, but you use exposure.
Right.
And and so, like, if you over coddle people, if you protect them from everything that's sharp, you make them dull and stupid and narcissistic, and it's a really bad idea.
So you do know America.
Peterson argues that these so-called safe spaces, where people are protected from offensive or challenging ideas, might actually be doing more harm than good. His point: growth, real personal and intellectual growth, doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when you're pushed, challenged, even uncomfortable. He says that by constantly shielding ourselves from anything that might upset us, we're not building strength, we're building fragility. And in his words, that leads to people becoming dull, stupid, and narcissistic. Ouch. But here's the deeper warning. This culture of over-coddling doesn't just stunt individuals. It weakens society as a whole. If we can't face hard truths or wrestle with difficult ideas, how are we supposed to deal with real-world problems? Peterson's message is clear. Stop hiding from discomfort. Lean into it. That's where resilience is built.
One thing I mean, your book is fantastic, and one of the rules that I really love is you say, don't let your kids do anything that would make you not like them. That's what I've been thinking for years. When I call them the fuck you mom generation. When I see kids, never in life, because I never go near a child, but like on TV and movies, I see kids like saying fuck you mom. And I'm like, if somebody who wasn't your child did that, you'd be immensely offended, whereas the parents just take it. What's up with that?
Well, people don't like to admit that they can dislike their children or children in general, and right.
No, I know what you mean. And
but they can.
No, they totally can.
One of the things you see very commonly as a clinical psychologist is family members who hate each other, and who it's like they have their hands around each other's necks for 20 years and are squeezing very slowly, trying to strangle each other. And you see parents who clearly detest their children and have ever since they were born. And part of that, I know it's a terrible way of looking at things, but it's true.
It's so true.
And one of the things,
No, parents confide that in me because I don't have kids.
Yeah, well,
He stresses one big thing: raise your kids to be likable. Not spoiled, not indulged. Likable. Why? Because if kids grow up with unchecked behavior, they're going to face rejection from their peers, teachers, and eventually the real world. And that kind of social pushback can lead to serious long-term problems. Peterson calls out a trend he sees in a lot of modern parenting: this fear of being too strict or somehow crushing a child's creativity. But he argues that avoiding discipline doesn't help kids. It actually hurts them. They need to learn self-control, respect, and how to function in a social world. Without those foundations, children aren't prepared for the challenges life throws at them. And it's not about control, it's about giving them the tools to thrive, connect, and grow into capable, confident adults. So yeah, being a parent means stepping up, setting limits, and sometimes saying no, for your kids' sake. Thanks for watching. Let me know your take in the comments.